Welcome back to The Beat. I'm joined live by Rosie O'Donnell, a comedian and actress, former talk show host, and an outspoken critic of President Trump. Tonight, you are live from Washington. You're leading a protest with a whole range of cultural leaders and Broadway performers in front of the White House. I'll mention it's part of this series of nightly protests that have been going on at Trump's door since the controversial meeting with Putin in Helsinki. First of all, Rosie, thanks for coming on The Beat to talk about this. It's nice to see you.
I'm really happy to be here. I'm sad it's not Fallback Friday, but still, I'll do my best.
You know what? We'll begin by saying you're welcome for any Fallback Friday. People know you. You are famous. You have tangled with this president. Walk us through what you're doing right now tonight. Why is this important?
Well, when I watched the Helsinki summit, and I, too, watched our president abandon our nation and be totally the betrayer that he is, I was horrified. But I was working on a movie, a Showtime series, rather, called SMILF, and I wasn't able to be off to come down here to protest, to join in the last 22 days. But luckily, we got a week hiatus. That was a little bit of a surprise to everyone. So I called Seth Rudetsky and asked him to get a bunch of Broadway people together so we could show up and support the people at the Kremlin Annex who have been protesting there for 22 nights in a row since that summit, where he really staked his claim in Russia as opposed to the United States.
Do you think, Rosie, I was thinking about this, and I want to ask it to you point blank. Do you think this is one of those periods in history where you have been proven right, where people who may not have given you the benefit of the doubt and thought you and Donald Trump had some sort of quote-unquote celebrity feud have come to learn things about him that reflect a problem with his leadership and why he's not fit for office? Has that been a turning point since Helsinki? Because we've heard from more people and more people across the spectrum that Helsinki raised profound questions about whether he should be president.
Well, he should not be president, and I don't believe that he's a legitimate president. I believe if it wasn't for Russia, he never would have won. And I think that the reason he's not so panicked about Russia is because he knows they're going to try again to do exactly what they did in 2016, although the mainstream media won't say it yet. They actually gave him the election. I believe that firmly, and I think a lot of people do. I think the media is a little bit slow, mainstream media, in coming around to where the people actually are. It took you guys a long time to call him a liar, and the man's been lying every day since he's been in office. So, you know, I think Helsinki was the last straw for a lot of people. It was like, forget it. You can't get more blatant than what he did right there. Swore his allegiance to Russia, not to his own country. And I believe he should be impeached. I'm sickened by Congress that doesn't call for articles of impeachment when we have so much evidence of his horrible high crimes and misdemeanors. So it's not really that I want to be proven right, but people thought we had a feud. I've never spoken to the man. He was on my show once as a sweeper when I was making money, but I never spoke to him in my life. And what he did, the way he kind of bombarded me and tried to change what the public opinion was of me with the help of the National Enquirer and Fox News, is exactly what he's done since he's been in office to people who have been lifetime civil servants, the head of the FBI, the CIA, you know, our allies across the world. So what he did to me was more like foreshadowing of what he was going to do to all of us. And as I know from the last decade, it doesn't feel so good.
Well, it's an interesting point you raised that I would like to explore with you, because this is something we've seen, and we've seen it in societies where democracy is in peril, that it becomes difficult for the society to deal in facts and policy if powerful people or the leadership turn everything into personal bullying or worse. We've seen that, as you say, with you. We've seen that as a political strategy with potentially truth tellers, if you think James Comey tells the truth under oath. And we've seen it with the press. I want to, with that context, go back to what is a low point, not to play it to be rude, but it was a political strategy that when he was pressed on his treatment of women, which has only become more exposed and more problematic, he personally attacked you. Let's take a look at that moment from the debates.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
What was he doing there in your view?
The worst part of that is the huge response. You know, the worst part is the huge response. You know, he's like a really bad stand-up comic in the Catskills who gets one schlocky line out and then talks about it for 4 months. You know, he told everyone, they laughed at that. That was the funniest thing. He was allowed to, with help from the mainstream media and MSNBC, all you have to do is look at the tapes from Morning Joe from 2007. They had him on once a week, and they all ganged up. Willie Geist was very anti-Rosie O'Donnell. So was Joe Scarborough. So was every single reporter on Fox. And it went on and on and on and on. And when he would go on and lie and say her show was canceled, the show was not canceled, my friend. I left the show and left $100 million on the table because I wanted to go home and parent. He changed the narrative and the factual truth about who I am to the public of America when I was not on TV every day to rebuke it. If I was on there, I don't think it would happen. Because people would go, oh, I see what she is. I understand what she is. But when he was the only one doing it, and nobody would stand up to him, and they would let him. It was as if only Rosie O'Donnell could have been only the 700 girls who are missing from the border. Only Stormy Daniels. Only all of these Mexicans that he derides and diminishes every chance he gets. You know, he's a horrible human with no soul, and he has a very serious mental disorder. There are so many psychiatrists who are trying to get out the duty to warn. They wrote a book. This guy is in no means mentally stable enough to run this country, and he should be impeached, and every congressman who hasn't filed those articles should lose their job.
You mentioned some of my colleagues who have their own TV shows, so as is my practice, I will let them respond how they want with their own TV shows. With regard to the activism, well, you know, that's how I am. That's the lawyer in me, Rosie. With regard to the activism...
Yeah, that's good.
How does it work? We have seen the flip side, and it's part of what you're mobilizing and what you're doing with people. We have seen record-breaking numbers of women running for office. We've seen record number of LGBTQ candidates. The New York Times has a story on that out. We're seeing this uprising, and the culture seems to be part of that. What do you think is important in direct action activism to recruit new candidates, particularly young women candidates and others? How do you view that as part of this?
Well, it is part of it because he's a misogynist man, and what he does is denigrate the most vulnerable, and he considers women not equal to men, and therefore, yeah, you can make fun of them. You could say that they're not appealing to you, as if women want to be appealing to him, as if women are walking around going, oh, my God, I'm so upset. Donald couldn't get it up for me. What, are you kidding me? I mean, this man is like a joke, and mainstream media treated him like a legitimate candidate, as if they were two equals, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And it was a falsehood from the start. And I think the best thing that we can do is encourage people to vote, because come November, we're going to save democracy or we're going to lose it. That is the whole thing. If we save democracy and we turn the House, he's gone. And it might take however long it takes for the impeachment trial to go out, but we're going to have to start the healing in America. We're going to have to start not being on different sides and understand that what this man did was unfair and inhumane, and even to the people who trusted him the most. That's what's heartbreaking. You see these people at these rallies, most of them paid to be there, screaming about, you know, that he's right and letting all their racist, deep, dark, horrible corners of their soul flourish. It's really, it's so against everything American. It really is. And I hope that we can flip this and save democracy. If we can't, I gotta believe that fascism will take over in America, and that will be the death of democracy, this 200-and-something-year-old experiment.
Right. You're worried about the state of the nation and our constitutional democracy. We hear that day in and day out from all people in different walks of life. You mentioned the rallies. I think we have seen terrible acts of hate and bigotry and violence even at these rallies. I think there also are plenty of people who go to them who are interested in Trump or conservative and are not racist. I want to play for you something, though, that we did see that's alarmed a lot of people, including the United Nations, as you know, which is something that we're more accustomed to seeing in other countries, which is the head of the government trying to rile up people against the free press, which is our First Amendment. Take a look, of course, at this.
They can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news. And even these people back here, these horrible, horrendous people.
Do you have a concern?
You know, when someone dies, maybe he'll shut up.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Rosie.
When someone dies, maybe he'll shut up.
Do you think that this conduct and language from the president raises a risk of violence in this country?
Without a doubt. And he's doing dog whistles every day. And he's shouting out to people who try to fight off their own internal racism. He's encouraging them. You know, when he goes after LeBron James, are you kidding me? On the day after he opens a school in Ohio, he's going to go after LeBron James? You know, it's crazy to me, the people that he attacks. And someone will get hurt. Someone will die, and someone did. Heather died at one of those rallies, right? How many more people are going to have to die before we realize what a horrible bully pulpit he has? No president has ever used it for the way that he has, and it's been a disgrace to democracy, our standing in the world, what America is about, and will return to being as soon as he's out.
The other thing you said,
Ari, I'd love to ask you if you could. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Is to take on the case of Reality Winner. No mainstream media will take her case on. Here's a young girl who warned all of us, who was a patriot, who served in the armed forces, who said Russia hacked our elections and it affected the results. And you know where she is? In jail. You know who else is in jail for Russian hacking right now? No one. Just Reality Winner, a 20-something-year-old girl. I don't understand why it's not national news.
Well, that's an important case, and I think it goes to the final thing I want to ask you about. You and some of the folks you've worked with are very critical of the role of the media, and I'll say, in all honesty, I think television media in the Trump phenomenon, that's something that we're accustomed to more on the right wing of criticisms of saying, oh, liberal media, mainstream media. I notice you use that term as well. What do you think is the corrective? What do you think is important dealing with someone like this that requires scrutiny and attention, but obviously exists to troll the media? And in your narrative, which I'm asking you about, you argue, basically beat the video game to some degree in 2016. What do you want to see different as a final question?
Well, I'd like you to stop covering his rallies. Number one, there's no reason to cover his rallies. All he does is lie, incite violence, and threaten journalists, if not celebrities, or other world leaders. I don't think you should cover his rallies at all. And I think that you should denounce all the lies that Fox News tell them and correct. And when someone sits across from you and tells a blatant lie, rather than calling it a mistruth, or maybe they didn't understand it, say, no, you're lying. I hope today on the White House lawn I meet some of the press corps so I can say, do what Jim Acosta did. Get up and walk out. Next time Sanders lies to you, stand up and walk out. That's the only way we're going to change it. They're lying to us so much, and nobody seems to care anymore. You got to care. You got to bring a whistle to the White House correspondents, and you got to blow it every time she says something that's a lie, which will be pretty much the entire conference.
As we were hearing your remarks, we were looking at live pictures of part of the protest you're leading there in front of the White House. Rosie O'Donnell, very interesting to hear from you directly. I appreciate you coming on the beat, and I mean it. We'd love to have you on Fallback Friday as well. Thank you.
Anytime. I got my rap quotes ready for you, Ari. If you don't know, now you know.
If you don't know, now you know. A little Brooklyn Biggie Smalls. Thank you, Rosie.
There you go.
Up ahead, we are going to look deeper.